Sanchita, have all the esteemed speaker have they joined?
Uh, Vinod sir and Anjan
I
sir.
think Vinod Sharma sir is already in the waiting
Yes,
room.
yes, he has joined. Anjan sir is yet to join.
Okay,
We
so
have
we
shared
wait.
him the link and just had a talk with him. He will join shortly.
Okay. Actually, some of our speakers need to leave a little early because there is a meeting following this. So maybe we can wait for next 2 minutes and then maybe we can start.
Okay, sure.
Meanwhile, I would request if you can just have a talk with Anjan sir so that he can also
Yes,
join.
yes, yes.
Yes, we can see Professor Vinod Sharma, sir.
Hello, sir. Good
Sir,
afternoon. How are you, sir?
sir, namaste and
Good afternoon to all of
regards on
you.
Guru Purnima. आपको सादर
Thank you
सादर
very
नमन सादर प्रणाम सर.
thanks a lot.
Anil sir, I think Shalini ma'am has also joined.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, Dr. Shalini.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Prita.
Hello, Shalini. ये कौन सी नदी है आपके पीछे?
I am just sitting in front of a mind void.
Oh, wonderful.
This is a beautiful mind void, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It's in coastal Odisha. I just wanted to hide my background.
You should teach all these tricks to us also.
Sir, you all are stalwarts. What can I teach you all?
नहीं शालिनी
All that
ऐसा
I
नहीं
need
है.
to learn from you all.
We all consider you as a leader in MBS. So इस मामले में हम सब आपसे सीखते हैं. एंड वैसे भी ये सब सब्जेक्ट इतने विशाल है ना कि पूरी जिंदगी गुजर जाए और हम कह नहीं सकते कि कोई एक्सपर्ट हो गया. तो वी ऑल हैव टू लर्न एंड द काइंड ऑफ पैशन दैट यू हैव डॉक्टर शालिनी, सो दैट इज आल्सो समथिंग एवरीवन कैन लर्न फ्रॉम यू. और सो आई एम सो हैप्पी. एक तरफ प्रोफेसर विनोद सर हैं हु हैज बीन लाइक माय टीचर, और आज गुरु पूर्णिमा का दिन है. बहुत बढ़िया सर, आपके सानिध्य में है.
और आज थर्सडे भी है.
जी सर बिल्कुल. ये हमेशा होता है और मुझे बड़ी खुशी होती है सर. और आज मैं सर यहाँ रुड़की में हूँ सर. आई एम ज्वाइनिंग फ्रॉम रुड़की.
अच्छा.
जी.
ओके ओके.
तो ये रुड़की का जो मेरा कमरा है बहुत कभी कभी यूज होता है. आज बहुत दिनों के बाद यूज हो रहा है. जी जी.
वेरी गुड.
Should I begin with all your permission?
I think, sir, did Anjan sir join? Sanchita?
Just had a talk and he's joining in a minute.
Okay. So, meanwhile, we can start with all your permission, Professor Gupta, Vinod sir, and Shalini ma'am. With your permission, I will start.
Please start, because you know
Yes.
that
Yes, we have
I
a
have to
meeting.
chair that session, and so I will have to leave.
So, without a further delay, first of all, good afternoon to everyone present here, the speakers, the attendees, and on behalf of the organizers, Sphere India and ICAS IIT Roorkee, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you on today's workshop. And also, first of all, I would like to congratulate Sphere for the wonderful work that they are doing with this capacity building series. And I think almost they have done near about 250 plus trainings, which is very much commendable. And today's webinar is primarily inspired from the International Day for Combating Sand and Dust Storms. And we are focusing on India's evolving risk landscapes towards an inclusive and adaptive disaster resilience strategy. So, in the past few decades, we are noticing that there is a rapid shift from the hazards point of view to disasters. And traditionally, the hazard profiles are being replaced by some multidimensional and cascading events which are further increasing the vulnerabilities and the complexities, as well as the volatility related to risks, the vulnerabilities, especially among the climates and the climate sensitive areas and the informal settings. So, with the webinar today, we have four very well-known figures in climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction and NBS with us today, and some of them are even pioneers in this sector. We have Professor V.K. Sharma, sir, who is the Vice Chair of Sikkim SDMA. We have Professor Anil Gupta, sir, who is a professor and the principal investigator for ICAS, IIT Roorkee. We have Dr. Shalini Dhyani, ma'am, who is the principal scientist at NEERI, and she's also the vice chair of the CEM of IUCN, Commission on Ecosystem Management. Then we also have Professor Anjan Prushti, sir. He is a professor of environmental sciences in Behrampur University. And we now start with the session today. And the first talk from Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, which will be focusing on understanding the escalating risks and the changing landscapes. Sir, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. First of all, my sincere thanks to I would say, the Bhishma Pitama of disaster risk reduction in India, Professor Vinod Sharma sir, for gracing this occasion, and my special greetings to Sphere India for taking this very important initiative, and jointly with ICARS IIT Roorkee. As we know that ICARS is one of the youngest center of excellence on the integrated approach, and we are thankful that it is developing a great consortium with supporter from all. The co-panelists, Dr. Shalini Dhyani and Professor Anjan Prushti, I'm also happy to welcome both of them. And this way the panel is so diverse, bringing a lot of experience in different domains. As a context setting, what I would like to say that under the third national platform on disaster risk reduction, which was inaugurated by Honorable Prime Minister and chaired by Union Home Minister, they recommended a very unique strategic intervention. And that is basically also linked with Prime Minister's 10-point agenda on disaster risk reduction. That annually there should be an exercise of identifying the key lessons from the major disasters that take place in different parts of the country. However, in the past also this kind of exercises were there. But this time now it is proposed that is a more systemic assessment, and also to understand that year-to-year basis, how the risk profile in the country is changing. The new type of risks are emerging. So that exercise which has been assigned to ICARS, and there in fact the Sphere India team has also contributed very significantly, and very soon we are going to publish it also. And this year's now for 2025 also, now the activity has already started. So there are few points from my side as a context setting for today's discussion. One is that in India, we have experienced in the past disasters the enormous loss of life. But now that loss is the damage that has been diversified. So now we see the damage more in terms of economic losses, and that economic damage also is comprising primarily three types, like the damage to infrastructure, like 2023-24, because of the heavy rainfall, there was a huge damage to the road infrastructure, particularly the example of Himachal can be quoted. Then there are damage to ecosystems, and that is something very difficult, because how to really account these kind of damages to ecosystem structure and functions under PDNA is a great challenge, not only in India but globally as well. And the third aspect, that now the impact on businesses, including supply chain, and also many of the businesses even vanish under the impact of disasters. How do we really look at that? Second aspect, that is something positive, that we have been quite reactive in disaster management. Now, year to year, we are moving towards more proactive approach. And that is basically a great contribution is from the effective early warning system, or the understanding that how the major disaster can take place. But here, what is important that basically the new dimension which are emerging, because India is a highly populous country, and the vulnerability dimensions where the demographic and these kind of aspects are also very important. So how do we look at the earlier concepts and the procedure, the tools for effective environment or resource management? For example, the carrying capacity based planning. In fact, Dr. Shalini is here, who had recently organized a major brainstorming session, and we had discussed that how do we integrate with the disaster risk management regime also. The third aspect that comes to my mind, and which is already well realized and recognized, that now we see very often more and more climate related extremes and climate related disasters. While Delhi and NCR witnessed today an earthquake, but earthquakes are not that frequent. However, the damageability of the earthquake is also equally important. So we also have to see that the low frequency, high intensity disasters and the high frequency and the varying kind of damageability. So there is a kind of a mixed thing, and that also we need to capture on. Then the fire related risk are also increasing. The urban fire as well as the industrial fire, and industrial chemical accidents now not only in the big industrial areas, but even the smaller industrial areas, and many times such kind of disasters, such kind of industrial mishaps which are not adequately reported. So these kind of mishaps are also being now coming to our knowledge. Urban focus, and that also reflects in the recent policy shift in India, as now government is moving towards creating new urban disaster risk management authority also, is also in the it is an acknowledgement of the realization that urban risks are distinct, and particularly urban floods and urban heat. Then Himalayan fragility, that's very important, that Himalayan areas, a little bit rain, and then we see that the regular news of the devastations, landslides, flash floods. And now Professor Vinod Sharma sir is here, who is vice chairman of Sikkim Authority, and Sikkim witnessed a major GLOF just 2 years back. But Sikkim state has taken a major step in understanding the risk of GLOF and developing a system and involving people, community, institutions in addressing GLOF. So both sides are also there, the understanding of risk and also gearing up to address these things. And the last point I would bring in here, that now there is a quite significant focus on risk management side, on governance and also the financial instruments. Now 16th Finance Commission is currently working to finalize its recommendation for next 5 years for the disaster risk management and response funding also. And I think these lessons about the changing risk scenario and changing resilience scenario and the interventions are going to be taken care by the 16th Finance Commission also. So with these few points as a line of reference, I'm sure that today's discourse is going to be very, very useful and very important for the joint exercise that is being undertaken by ICARS, where the Sphere India is also supporting very, very significantly, and the guidance from the experts like Professor Vinod Sharma, Dr. Shalini, Anjan, and many others, and many centers of excellence on disaster management in the country and national institutions, authorities would be very, very important. So thank you very much, and looking forward to this very, very important discussion today. Thank you, and over to Pritha for taking the agenda forward.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very interesting how you mentioned about the lessons from the past disasters and the emergent risks and the vulnerability profiles, as well as the diversified damage cost associated with them, particularly also including the business continuity models. These are one of those concerns which are actually need to be integrated at the present condition. Thank you so much, sir. And with this, I proceed forward with our second panelist, that is Professor Vinod K. Sharma. Vinod sir is the vice chairman of Sikkim STNA, and he is one of those persons who doesn't need an introduction. He's the pioneer of this, and he started this the center at IIPA's Center for Disaster Management, and also he has been directing us, guiding us in all our endeavors, and uh, he has experience for over, I mean, he has written over 70 research papers and 10 edited books. And he is also the senior professor at the Indian Institute of Public Administration. And in his role, he has directed the formulation and implementation of disaster policies and resilience building across the districts, block, and village level in Sikkim's preparedness actions. And he has a background in ecology from Banaras Hindu University. And with this, sir, the floor is all yours. Sir will be talking on the escalating hydrometeorological hazards, addressing flash floods, lightning surges, cloud bursts, and glacial risks. Sir, over to you.
Thank you very much, Prathaji, and my greetings to all of you on this very auspicious day of Guru Purnima. And Professor Anil Gupta ji, I compliment you and Sphere India, for this kind of continuous dialogue, I should say, on important issues like this. And definitely, not only today's speakers, but I think the dialogues, which you have started in ICARS, and in different ways, in different mode, offline, online. I think it's a very, very good beginning. My compliments to you and to your team that within very short period of time, I think you are raising issues and giving, for solutions, actually, the directions to the institutions, individuals, people, who are working with climate resilience, with disaster risk reduction. I think there was a need of this kind of center, and I think ICARS is fulfilling, this gap which was there. My today's my Pratha has given me 15 minutes, but in case I take more, so you will excuse me, because we are working on these issues which you have given to me, hydrometeorological disasters, and in fact, the whole Himalaya, which is highly vulnerable for from climate change point of view, and the effect is now visible. And Professor Anilji very rightly said that on 4th of October 2023, we faced a GLOF, and that was a very sad event. But in fact, Professor Gupta wants to convey that, this has happened, but Sikkim started working on these issues, on identifying vulnerability and knowing vulnerability. And then we did a lot of things, on preparedness. So I would like to tell you in this 15-20 minutes that how preparedness can work, actually, how much we can be benefited in case we are prepared. Friends, the whole Himalaya is full of glacier lakes, and we know that only Sikkim is having 85 notified glacial lakes, out of which about 16 are increasing out of proportion. And this knowledge, this, in case you say vulnerability, this is known to us. I think in disaster management, when we teach, we say that no disaster, know your vulnerability. So I think this is a very important thing, that now all over India, in every state, there are efforts that we should know what are the hazards and what can be there, what can be the impact of these hazards. So same thing we are doing in Sikkim. We have all hot spots for landslides. We know that glacial lakes, how many glacial lakes are increasing out of proportion, and we are in touch with the remote sensing, with the ISRO, with the different agencies, and they are giving us enough information. Our Department of Science and Technology in Sikkim, it's very active, I should say. In case you want any data, any information about any glacial lake, I'm saying any glacial lake, they are having it. So this is very important. So this glacial lake, I became vice chairman of Sikkim Disaster Management Authority in 2012. And 2013, our chief secretary, there was a lady chief secretary, she called me and she said, sir, I heard, there are many, these letters and emails coming from ISRO, and they are saying that this Lonach Lake is increasing in size. So I said, we know it, and I think we should do something about it, some scientific study or something. And then after discussion, she had the aerial survey on helicopter on a quiet day, she with science and technology people, and she could, we briefed her that, look, how much Lonach Lake is increasing. And then in 2014, we planned a, expedition to that. So in case, Pratha, you have time, I will show a few slides, because I've brought some slides in case, I don't know how much time you have for me. But otherwise, I will just explain that what was the process and what we did. But we have, and anybody who is interested, I can share it with him or her.
So we have time for a few slides. You have time till 3:35, so the stage is all yours.
Okay. So I will just share a few, this. Can you see the this slide? Is it visible?
Yes, sir, we can see that.
Okay. So this is earlier, we were having only 4 districts, but now we have 6. And so we are talking about this South Lonach Lake, which is here and which is increasing in size, and it's on very high altitude. So I think, more than 5,000 meter, 5,245. And we were knowing that what is going on. So, as I told you, that science and technology people, they were knowing that its area was in hectare, it was around 7.5. But in 2008 and then in 2012, it was more than 100 hectare actually. So you can increase how many times this Lonach Lake increased in size. And the science and technology, they explained to them that start from 65 onwards, we have data. And every year, and thanks to our science and technology, these people are giving us information that how these glacial lakes, are increasing in size. And the problem is known to us. So I think this was not a new thing. In 14, we started working on it. And then we came out that, how much increase or how much percent increase is there every year. And we decide that we should do something immediately. So what happened that the first field expedition, as I told you, 2014, and my SSDMA, there was additional secretary, and he led this expedition. And SASE, which is one of very important organization of Army, Snow and Avalanche Study Establishment, then Science and Technology of Sikkim and Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority, we all join hands. And with their help, we could see that what are the issues. And then we came back and studied that what can be done, in this. And, we were knowing the threats, that how much threats are there, to the region. And in case there is any glove-like thing, then what will happen? So I think all these things were known to us. And we were knowing that the Teesta hydropower plant, and which was affected. So all, what Professor Anil Gupta was saying, that loss and damage and all this, the assessment, the risk assessment basically. So we did all these things, before that. And then there was second field, expedition, because now we wanted solution. Problem was known to us. Then we consulted one of very known person, Sonam Wangchu of, Ladakh, and he agreed, to help us. And in this, the team for his organization from Ladakh, ITBP, Science and Technology, SSDMA. So this, now it will be a bigger team, second time. And we started talking about that how we can do mitigation. And this mitigation was possible when we siphoned, some of the water from the lake, because it was increasing more than 16 times. So you can imagine that in case something happened, then the entire area will be affected by this. So we started working on it. Now, how to do it? This was the thing. And then we prepare plans. And, saying is very simple. You can say that you can siphon water, but you see 12,000 feet, and, how to take the pipes, how to, do it, how to install it, all these issues were there. And then we had a, marathon, meetings and discussions with all experts, etc. And we consulted people from mines and geology. We consulted people from almost every department. We consulted army. We consulted, the local farmers. And then ultimately, army said that you can talk to the Air Force. They can help you. We talked to the Air Force. Air Force said, no, I think these pipes, we cannot take these pipes. It's not possible. Then we talked to other agencies. They all refused, from some point, it was very difficult to take it to 12,000 feet height. And so the only alternative which we are having, that was yak, manually. And manually, you can see this. This is a very interesting picture. And I remember that these pipes, we ordered specifically, to a company, which they made it for us. And I thank to them. We gave specifications. We told them that this should be the length, this should be the dia, this should be the material. And the pipes were ready. They were given to Siliguri, and from Siliguri it came to Gangtok, and from Gangtok we took to the base camp. But from base camp, how to take it to the lake? So then we took help of yaks. And these yaks, they never, carrying this kind of stuff. So many yaks, they run away, and we don't know where are these yaks, and we have to pay to the farmers, about their compensation of that, because their yaks were, because they never see this kind of pipes and all these things. So, but anyway, this thing was happened, and ultimately we reached to the station. We reached to this lake, and it was a Herculean exercise. Thanks to my colleagues, thanks to the officers of Science and Technology, SSDMA, ITBP, and all, and the team of Sonam Wangchu, that they were there on the lake. And then Sonam Wangchu was also there with them, and he guided them that this is the way, you can join these pipes, and then, the water can be siphoned off. And we started working on that. And you believe me that we were saying that, oh, we are successful. This is the thing. And we took some samples of Moram. We took because there was it was a planned study. It was not unplanned. We were working since last 2 years. And now the pipes were laid, and, it started working. And we were not knowing that, sometimes there is wind velocity is so high that these pipes will be molded, and the whole experiment will go. Anyway, that time, we were saying that it is successful, and the water start discharge, and then we were thinking that how to use this water, because it was very important that the farmers need water. There is always a scarcity of water, in the hilly areas. So we were thinking that how to use it, basically. We were thinking that our, experiment is very successful, and now it will be, discharged properly. And then we put some sensors, and these sensors, we connected it from Gangtok, and we were knowing that what is going on, how much water is being discharged. It's a very, very interesting, I should say, thing which has happened over there. Then everybody was happy. We came back, and then we saw that after some time, even after 1 year, actually, these pipes, they start bending because of too much of wind velocity, and the discharge was much less, and the sensors, they were not working. So we thought that then there should be a third, expedition. So 2017 again, we have ITBP team, and then the Sonam Wangchu and these people, and then we were saying that the three things which we find, that sensor to monitor water level, they collided with the floating icebergs, and certain shift in the river course that was observed, and pipe which were installed for siphoning, they were displaced, so it was not anchored properly. So now we know the reason, what has happened, and so we again went there, and again we started working on it. And again, we see that the pipes, which were completely, so we again, and we put, another solid sensors so that they can work. So what I am saying is that it was a very big exercise. As I'm saying, that saying is a very simple thing, but reinstalling these pipes, going there, remaining there, for a few days, seeing that this experiment is successful, this was a big thing, and I compliment the team, which was there. So after reinstallment, we gave some recommendations, and we came back, and we were thinking that now it will work. One more thing, now I'm coming to most important point, and friends, now listen to me, that we were knowing that, this kind of experiment needed, siphoning is required, we will have to release some water. As Sonam Wangchu suggested, that this water can be converted into icebergs or small stupas, as he is doing in Ladakh. We started working on that. But at the same time, we were knowing right from 2014 that there can be GLOF also. after doing all these things, in case there is high rainfall, in case there is landslide in the lake, in case there is anything, earthquake or something, then there can be a big gulf. And this idea, then we said we should be prepared for that. So we identified all the villages, everything, our power stations, our dams, etc. So everything we listed that these things will be affected. And then we started working on it. And then we started mock drills, every year. And these mock drills, earlier the response was very bad. The people were taking it very lightly. But later on, when we were doing it and we told them that this can happen, so the villagers, all town people, even the dam authorities, they were sensitized. And ultimately, they started working with us. Friends, I compliment NDMA and others, they also helped us in these mock exercises. And we are doing it, up to, you will not believe that before GLOF, before few months, there was a mock drill over there. And we explained to them that in case there is any siren, then you will have to come, and this is the safe place. I think this was the most important thing, the most important part of preparedness, and this could save several thousand people from that gulf. This has happened on 4th of October night at 2 o'clock, but at 2 o'clock when the siren was there from the dam, immediately the villagers in the night time, they said that, oh, it cannot be a just mock exercise. It is a serious thing. And immediately, all these people, they evacuated without any police force, without anybody. They came to the safe place and we could save more than 3,000 lives. About 30 people, 33 people died. Every person is important for us. But let me tell you here that these people were not from this region. They were from army, drivers, etc. They were not part of any mock drill. They were not knowing, that why this siren is blowing or something. There are some laborers, which they went to open the gates. So they were affected by that. So I'm sorry for their death, and we are very sorry for that, because every person is important. He or she may be laborer, he may be officer, anybody from the army, civilian, doesn't matter. But all these 33 people who died, they were not part of any mock exercise. In case they would have been part of any mock exercise, I am telling you that we could have saved them. Friends, I think you have seen, and I think, you all, I am seeing some very important people like Shalini ji and others, Arjun Prusti ji. They are working, in this area, and they know that every state is affected, by the hydroclimatic, disaster. We have seen that in 3 days in Himachal Pradesh, there were 30 cloud bursts. In 3 days, 30 cloud bursts in one state. You can imagine. So, and the loss and everything is enormous. The important thing is that these things will be happening. And it's a long term, long time it will take, then we are fully prepared and there is no zero casualty, etc. But I think the preparedness, this should be a continuous process with every state. They should know their vulnerability. They should know that all these things happen. In Delhi, there was an earthquake this morning. It was 4.1, but it could have been 6.1. It could have been 7.1. And in case you ask me that whether Delhi is prepared for earthquake, friends, my answer will be capital no, capital N, capital O. No, we are not prepared. I think we have to do a lot and we have to be prepared, for any disaster. I'm just, my concluding remarks will be that I think at national level, and we are grateful that our Prime Minister, our NDMA, and Prime Minister is heading NDMA. So they are very much interested that the country should take lead in disaster risk reduction. But this is possible when every state will cooperate, when every state prepare their own plan, when every state is having their strategy of involving local people, having more and more Abda Mitra, having more and more community participation, and this kind of approach. I think the casual approach, which people take, that after disaster we will see what can be done, I think this will not work. Otherwise, it will take a huge, debt toll. Hydrometeorological disasters, it's not a small thing. It is happening, and everywhere, it is every state is being affected by that. And I think we should do. So there is a separate, in case you ask me that what can be done, there are many things. And because I am interested in this area, because this is my core area, I can speak for the whole day that what can be done. But important thing is that these organizations which are here together, I think every organization should find out their own role in preparedness, in mitigation, in response. And I think these things are important. And that's why Honorable Prime Minister is saying that it is not only Home Ministry, but every ministry should be prepared for disaster risk reduction. And same way, every organization should be having a disaster risk reduction plan and should contribute to it. I stop here and I thank again, to Prathaji and to Ms. Das and everybody, there, Ms. Biswas, who is from Sphere India, and my very learned colleagues, Dr. Shalini ji and Dr. Anjan Prusti ji, for listening to me and guiding us, that what can be done. You guys are having long experience. You are with the, awareness generation. Kindly let us know. And I invite you, to Sikkim. Please please guide us, that what else we can do in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing the case of Sikkim and Lunak Lake. And it was a very interesting case and how proactively Sikkim is working on addressing the problems. The importance, the applicability, you talked about the siphoning systems and their applicability is also being taken up very actively in the current National Adaptation Plan that is focusing on disaster management and resilient infrastructure. And one of the very important things you mentioned was is that we also need to understand what our challenges are in terms to be successful. So this is very interesting point that should be taken up from here. And also, as sir, you mentioned that cooperation and the understanding of our own roles, not as just the organizations, but also at individual level, what we can contribute to is the essence here. And with that, sir, I thank you and proceed forward with our next speaker. We have Dr. Shalini Dhyani. She's a principal scientist at the CSIR National NEERI, and she's also the Asia Vice Chair and Steering Committee member of IUCN SEN. She works on the interlinkages between socio-ecological systems, diverse knowledge systems, and sustainability sciences approaches for ecosystem health assessments, and implementing the nature-based solution for DRR and climate change adaptation. With that, ma'am, with this very brief bio, I welcome you to the stage. All yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pritha. And also thank you, Sphere India, for this very kind invite and having me here in this very important discussion. And I must also extend my gratitude and thanks to Professor Vinod sir. I think having so much of expertise, being the stalwart in the field, and still being so humble and considering us of doing something in the field is taken as a great motivation. And I'm sure this will also lead us to contribute more in this sphere. Uh, and whatever has been discussed right now, I think my task is to bring up and sum up some of these solutions that we called as nature-based solutions. So it's not basically us helping nature, it's nature helping us to cope with the disasters. And many of them are not just natural disasters, but also man-made disasters. And I think already Vinod sir and Anil sir has provided a deep and comprehensive insight on how the disasters are appearing at the moment. And it's just not natural areas that we were thinking that disasters are happening somewhere in the mountain areas only, where landslides happening during the rain monsoon season, or there are cloud bursts. Now we see that in last couple of years, like 2018 onwards or 13 onwards, we're seeing that disasters are increasing in frequency across the country. And this frequency is equally increasing even in urban areas. So when you talk about risk, I think right from summers, right from winters, then we have this smog kind of situation in Delhi. And then we have this summers where some very high temperature heat islands are emerging across the country in urban areas. And also once the monsoon onsets, we have these landslides, cloudbursts, disasters happening not only in Himalayas, but also now in Western Ghats. You see Kerala has emerged as one of the hotspots, especially in mountain areas. So landslide degradation is, and degradation is some of the very important aspects. Now, at the similar aspect, it's very important to understand there is a huge global consensus at the moment on not only conservation of biodiversity and ecosystems, but also how ecosystems play a major role in helping us to adapt and also mitigate some of these challenges. So even if you look to Global Biodiversity Framework 2022, or you look to other developing aspects of IUCN, where they're talking about now global standards, UNGA is also picking up nature-based solutions. And we also know there are ecosystem health assessments coming up. Climate change adaptation is a lot to be supported by countries and nations, be it developing, underdeveloped, or developed. The NDCs are to be supported by healthy ecosystems. And even if we see the restoration target 2030, a lot has to be coming from healthy ecosystems, tree outside forest areas, community-centric approaches. I saw somebody was mentioning about we want to hear more about communities. And I think there is a huge socio-ecological connect between our resources. It's just not humans, it's just not nature, but together in combination that we are thinking about when we talk about reducing disaster risk. Now, the way our world is shaping up, the way our ecosystems, especially rich, healthy ecosystems, are degrading, it's high time that we also acknowledge that there has to be a clear foresight for future at what level this disaster risk is going to amplify in future, and at what level our ecosystems have to be kind of a net positive kind of impact, so that we not only talk about biodiversity net positivity, but we also talk about reducing these risks. So when I talk about nature-based solution, and the definition itself says that it's just not greenwashing. It's just not planting trees across wherever you want. It's basically understanding the societal challenge. It's important to understand the understanding of a site-specific situation. So something what Anil sir was talking about, or something that Vinod sir was talking about, glacial lake or landslides or floods, the situation in Sikkim might be very different than what it is in Western Himalayas, in Uttarakhand, or it might be very different in Western Ghats. So there has to be a very, very site-specific, customized solution that addresses societal challenges in these areas. Now, nature-based solution has a approach of how do we plan it and how do we implement it. So it is to understand how your ecosystems are, what kind of time series you're planning, what will be the short-term targets, what will be the long-term target, and who are going to be getting involved with it. Because I personally see in last almost a decade working in this sphere, a lot of onus lies with the communities. But you can imagine a marginalized community living somewhere in the vicinity of this disaster-prone area might be earning a bread might be the main and important task for him than working on conservation. So we have to develop a model, and I'm sure there are certain and a lot of these models across the country where we need to actually think about how do we scale them up. And government is already supporting them through Manrega, through Nagar Van Yojana, and so many other schemes you may see, and you can understand how these efforts are ongoing to implement them on ground. But what is happening at the moment, and even if you see the UNEP report of 2019, it says that actually, whenever we talk about nature-based solution, it is just not public sector support that is enough to scale them up and enough to support them for reducing disaster risk. There has to be a good amount of people-centric approaches and also good amount of private sector financing to ensure that by 2030, there are enough of these solutions to achieve the targets and to reduce the disaster risk. So when we talk about urban areas, I think heat islands are the major challenge. But when I work in Tier 2 cities also, and Tier 3 and Tier 1 cities also. And one of the major gaps that we identify for addressing this gap of nature-based solution, addressing the emerging risk, is that there are still not sufficient spaces to actually include these kind of solutions. For example, Sir talked about Delhi that is not prepared for any kind of earthquake. I mean, you don't have enough of disaster plan in place to secure or save the entire Delhi if there is a major earthquake that happens. But at the same time, if you see the level of concretization that is in Delhi or any other Tier 1 city in the country, it's very, very tough to actually have a very specific kind of nature-based solution to be integrated in urban planning. While I see a lot of opportunities still lying with Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities because they are growing, and there is a lot of opportunity where you can, right from this stage of development, integrate them. So how do we address these concerns when we don't have space? What kind of customized solution can be there? So when you see urban areas in India, I think WHO has given one of the important guidelines that at least 9 meters square per capita of green space should be with every citizen, urban citizen in the country. Whereas Indian guidelines are even more stringent. They say that 10 to 12 meters square per capita of green space is very much required for a healthy kind of a human well-being kind of situation. But when we started looking to even Tier 2 cities, we were very surprised that this demand supply gap is really huge. It's the best of the best areas are sometimes having just 2 to 3 meters square per capita green space, whereas many of these, concretized area are not even having 0.02 or 0.03 meters square per capita. So these are some of the statistics to understand that there is a serious demand supply gap, and that is growing very fast in the country. And it's just not in the urban area, but maybe also in many of these remote areas or peri-urban areas as well. So the good way of inculcating the habit of nature-based solution cannot just come from how government is thinking about it, but how as individuals we feel as a sense of responsibility to support these ideas. And a good thing can be to understand that every charity starts from home. And even if we can think of what kind of green spaces are around us, because India is just not growing horizontally, it's now growing vertically. And how do we address and how do we identify solutions, a nature-based solution that flat scheme-wise can be implemented in the country? So these are some of the ideas that I think really need a kind of consideration, but it's not just a gray story that I want to share with you all. There is still a lot happening in the country. Even if you see in the mangrove areas, or even if you see closer to Delhi, there are some very good pilots happening where people are working and people are greening the areas. You see in mountains, you will always find these kind of solutions. So my first one-to-one encounter with disaster was long back, almost 20 years back, when I personally fought a landslide and I navigated that landslide. And I must say it's not easy. It's a life-changing and life-threatening kind of a situation that helps you understand what can we do better in a way, and that's important. And I think Bureau of Indian Standards is shortly also bringing up some of these guidelines for the country, because definitely there are a lot of checklists when you see what kind of trees to be planted, but how do you address post-plantation care? Even if a landslide requires to be restored through nature-based solution or not is another question. There are rock slides, there are mud slides. So that kind of approach requires a very multi-stakeholder collaboration and cooperation. And we're very fortunate we are trying to bridge this gap and bring up some guidelines that are not just guidelines, but implementable and replicable guidelines. So I think these are some of the important concerns, but let us not miss on communities, because they are the major implementers on ground. So how do we support this entire approach and implementation through incentivization? Incentivization can be both monetary or non-monetary, and how we can think about having an idea of income diversification linked to it, where there is a trained manpower, where corporate community partnerships can be developed. We developed certain kind of these partnership with mining areas and also with coastal industries who are having mangrove plantation. But I think this kind of approach, where during monsoon and post-monsoon, these kind of communities can not just get temporary employment, but can also get a long-term employment, because plantation across the country is a practice, be it forest department or any other government entity. But how do you make it more scientific? How do you make it more climate adaptive? Is something that we work on, and we'll be very glad to share some of the insights if you would like to look to by writing to us. Last but not the least, now NBS has global standards already there. The second updated level of NBS is under development. UNG is already talking about. So what we have done in last 1 year is we brought in these 9 translations in Indian and also some Asian languages, right from Hindi to Marathi, Tamil, Malayalam, and few other languages, including Persian and also Malay. Based on our interest, because I think unless people understand what is happening at the global level, they will not understand what these indicators and criteria are. And the second thing that we are bringing right now are 5 to 8 minutes of videos in local languages, and hopefully by September they will be out, so that even a person sitting in municipal corporation, because this idea came when I was visiting Kerala, and the municipal corporation workers and officials really wanted something in their local language that can be further spread and shared for capacity building and knowledge awareness. So I think this is what we are doing at the moment, and we'll be very interested in future through the platform of IIT Roorkee, where Dr. Anil Gupta is, or Vinod sir, who might be interested in these criteria and indicators and also videos, taking them to local stakeholders to understand what exactly nature-based solution is, and it just not gets like any other buzzword growing across the world, and it's just not another way of greenwashing the country. Thank you so much once again for your patience, and thank you, Pritha, and everybody from Sphere India for this invite. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for mentioning about the guidelines, the criteria, and also the work that is being done in this sector. As you started your talk, you mentioned one thing: we are not helping nature, but nature is actually helping us, which is the I mean, that's the actual truth, absolute truth. And the points of you mentioned regarding the net positivity, and this may remain very incomplete if we cannot reduce the damages and loss that are being associated with the disasters and the hazards that are taking up these days. Now, scaling up models and also the mapping of very easy and evident entry points for NBS is also something which needs to be taken up, because there are lots of opportunities in areas where you were mentioning, but maybe that potential understanding of what should be the key point where we should hit the nail maybe is still to be taken up. Now, on the urban context, ma'am, you mentioned about the unavailability of spaces to inculcate NBS interventions, which is very interesting. Maybe this is something that, in fact, I did not have a lot of understanding of this, and this is a very new thing that came up today for me. And yes, how you mentioned about the point of customizing the solutions and making them more scientific is actually the need of the hour, that and the work has to be done on that. And with that, ma'am, thank you very much for your talk. Now we move forward with our next speaker. We have Professor Anjan Prushti sir. Anjan sir is an associate professor and the head of the Department of Environment Studies at Behrampur University. He has more than 20 years of research experience. His interest spans over conservation ecology, wetland ecosystems, and river basin management, ecotoxicology, and environmental impact assessment. He has previously served as a scientist at SACON and also the Gujarat Institute of Desert Ecology. He has also worked with more than 20 research and development as well as consultancy projects from various national and international agencies, including SERB, CSIR, UNESCO, UNICEF, and he has more than 50 journal articles and more than 20 book chapters and papers. Sir will be talking on the topic from silos to synergy, strengthening governance for multi-hazard preparedness. Anjan sir, the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prithaji. Am I audible? Can you confirm it?
Yes, yes, sir. Please.
Yes. So I start this discussion with a note of gratitude to Spear India, Professor Anil Gupta ji, and it was really heartening to see Vinod Sharma sir on the forum and dear friend Salini as well. And yeah, as we move ahead with this discussion, uh, first it was little uh, surprising for me to see your email with the title, suggested title, but then that is what was the opportunity also I considered as yes, uh, uh, that's the kind of flavor that from an higher education institution we could pass on to the discussion about connectivity, about passing from experiments from lab to land, and then the whole concept of experiential learning. So that's where I feel the title Silos to Synergy and Strengthening Governance is really befitting. And as we move ahead with this discussion, there are a couple of case studies that I have just marked here, but then I will definitely talk about why there is a need for a larger discussion and a deeper percolation of these concepts into the society, and how university higher education landscape can actually facilitate a larger discourse and much more effective strategy development in this regard. Just to start with the multi-hazard thing, everywhere we talk about risk and hazards, but then when we merge both natural, uh, anthropogenic, technological, and biological hazard, the magnitude and the impact is actually manifold, and thereby the challenges as well. Now, to address such challenges, I always think look from the report of UNDRR, where it is very clearly mentioned, like we must stop managing disasters in silo and start governing risk in systems. It has to be a system-based approach, and system, whether it is engineered system, whether it is ecological system, whether it is educational system, or whether it is a participatory system, that we have to actually discuss and finalize the strategy. Now, it's no secret that we have faced almost close to 250 extreme weather events, between during the last 2 decades. And so, what has to be understood from this is we have learned the lessons. We have our fair share of lessons, and then we have chipped in different resources. We have been able to manage the events fairly, but there were some barriers as well. So those barriers was created not because of any lack of knowledge base, but rather it is connectivity, issue of connectivity, and it was basically a fragmented governance landscape. Now, those fragmented governance act as barrier, and they present, and so that's where the integrated approaches are required for multi-hazard make it readiness. Now it has to offer policy and community-led strategy. I would also give some of the case studies and example of how community-led mechanism does help, especially from the higher education landscape. So some of the concepts of NBS, which Dr. Salini has already given enough hint and flavor of that during her discussion. And then the other aspect of it is community-based participatory research. That is what I am going to, dwell upon in the current scenario. Now, if we look into this establishing synergy among different institutions, we need to understand actually a transition from the risk to resilience. So as we move from risk, the probability aspect, to actually developing resilience, it is clearly a function of not only the probability of a hazard happening, but the duration of exposure, the sensitivity, the response, how do we respond as a society, as a state, and as a system, and the adaptive mechanism that we have in place. Now, if we look from that framework of resilience, actually we have engineering resilience, ecological resilience, evolutionary resilience. But then as a researcher in the domain of ecology, I would always go for, it's not just being a researcher in the domain of ecology, but also if we look into long-term sustainability approach, then it is ecological resilience. That is what is going to give us enough dividends here. And also it is going to give us a lot of capacity to bear with the loss, and also to recover from the loss and damage. And if we look at the multiple of challenges, only when it is multiple hazards. The classic example is when we were locked during COVID lockdown period, we also witnessed cyclone Amphan. That's the kind of multi-hazard risk that we have. So you do not know it is going to have additive impact or antagonistic impact or synergistic impact, but then our preparedness has to be equally there. Irrespective of the kind of impact it is going to have. So you might experience storm surge, but you might also experience the biological challenges of going ahead with many plans and strategies. Now, similarly, Sharma sir have been talking about the Sikkim case study, so that reminded me of even Uttarakhand 2021 incident of glacier outburst and the way downstream flooding happened. But no one can also rule out the experiences that we have been from our cities like Mumbai flood and Chennai flood. So if you recall the kind of urban flood and the periodicity that we have, let us, as a society, as an informed citizen, let us really dwell upon this and make an introspection. Is it really due to high rainfall? Is it really due to is it the quantum of rainfall that matters here? I would say that it is not. It is actually the capacity of the city to hold the rainwater has practically narrowed down. We have practically and strategically killed all our water holding structures. I would rather say urban water bodies and wetlands have been strategically killed. But then that sensitivity has to be spread in the society as what is the need of such kind of ecosystem which actually act as sponge in the cityscape. Now, if you look at UNDRR report as well, 2021, I draw reference from that. Most of our 75% of disasters in South Asia are linked to hydrometeorological hazards, and that's where even the flood events, urban floods, are also part of it. So why the fragmented governance becomes a barrier and poses a challenge here is about connecting the dot and making all the ministries work in coherence and to address the challenges posed by such disasters. So that's how the befitting title from silos to synergy, it actually gives us enough hint as we need to have synergistic connectivity and coherence with all the line departments in any particular state in terms of data sharing, in terms of joint action plan, in terms of implementation. So that means if we still continue to function under siloed system, the impacts could be many. So some example, Odisha has been spearheading in terms of disaster management for quite a long time, for a couple of decades, but still we have some challenges when it happened. The flood happened in Mahanadi Basin during 2023. Because of lack of coordination among different departments, we had ultimate impacts like delayed flood alert and evacuation system that was also little impacted. So what is required is separate emergency fund across ministries. That's what co-financing, even by chipping in industrial partnership, is highly essential in the synergistic planning in terms of disaster management. So the major challenge comes from coordinating the gaps between the water resource department, health mission, and participatory rural institutions as well. Losses everyone knows because these things are there in public domain as well. The kind of maybe 1,200 crore rupees, 1,200 crore damage was estimated. Now, if we move to the conceptual framework in terms of having a synergistic activity, the governance, synergy in governance is essential both at local level, regional level, national level, and at global level. So now it is the time to act locally and advocate globally. We can have any synergy between two different line departments, make a case study, but that we could advocate at a global platform. That's what is the need of the hour. So the focus should be on shared goal, because it is our shared responsibility also to reduce the risk and to ensure equity and resilience in the society. So when we talk about systems approach, we have to view the disaster preparedness as an interconnected cycle, like in terms of early warning, then response, the recovery, and most important part is how do we adapt to it. And then global framework. If we, I mean, everybody must be knowing, any informed citizen, about the Sendai framework to 2015 to 2030, the timeline we have. There are 4 priorities, and all the 4 priorities, the entire framework emphasizes the governance part of it, because whatever action you take on ground, it requires multi-stakeholder approach. That's where the governance plays a major role. In this case, I would quote 2 different sustainable development goal as SDG 11 and SDG 13, especially in having sustainable city and community in terms of urban, the cityscape, making more sustainable life, sustainable and the climate action in terms of developing mitigation strategy for all sorts of climatic uncertainties. Now, if you look at such the effective national adaptation plan process also, it integrates various aspects. One, institutional arrangement, the engagement with multi-stakeholders, the data integration, skill and capacity building, financing, not just financing, but rather co-financing, and the leadership aspect. So whatever national level action plan you prepare, the financing part becomes a major issue. And in this case, the role of private parties, especially the industries, is highly essential. I mean, if you look at the DST's STIP policy of 2023, this also talks about the co-financing by the industrial partner in the research and development landscape of our country. So why not for the disaster management landscape? In that planning process also, we need to chip in industries into our planning program. So that's where the synergy is required in terms of water, the infrastructure building, health aspects, agriculture, and ultimately food security. That's what is going to provide us a just society. Now, what lessons we have learned from earlier hazards, and how do we make it into practice? So if it is multi-hazard aspect, I would definitely give an example of Odisha, the kind of multiple hazards that we have experienced. Not only heat condition, extreme heat condition, but also periodicity, repeatability in increasing periodicity of tropical cyclones that the state has been witnessing. If you look that way, we have the institutional landscape also. From the government of India side, we have the National Disaster Management Authority, established way back in 2005. But then now many states have already established constituted state disaster management authority also. But the only challenge is only 13 states so far. I was going through NIDM report 2024, because in the February consultation workshop where Professor Anil Gupta sir had chipped me into his office for a consultation workshop, I was going through that NIDM report of 2024. I was surprised only 13 states so far have updated multi-hazard plan, but rather we should be foolproof. As far as multi-hazard plan is concerned, all the states and union territory administration must chip in their time and energy and finalize the multi-hazard plans. So some case studies that happened in Japan, the way they deal with multiple hazards simultaneously, we need to learn lessons from that. Even Philippines case study is also wonderful, but then different detailed discussion at length is essential for that. Even a research article that I always consider as, not seminal article, but yes, I often keep reading this article, very recently published, I mean, way back in 2021, just 4 or 5 years, the way the Dutch they have managed the spatial flood control by aid of GIS and remote sensing application and the tools. The way the AHP model, the analytical hierarchical process modeling, was applied in. So I believe and I urge that all the city administration, urban local bodies do employ such kind of tools and design the flood control program in their cityscape. I think it's going to be an aid for any policymaker, and India as a country facing multiple challenges and multiple hazards also need to take a lot of insights from this article. And then we have barriers for integrating also, because we have silos, budget strategy, everything prepared independently, no cross-cutting, no coordination among different departments, lack of interdepartmental capacity building, a major hurdle. And even in crisis zones also we have political wars. That is another the barrier that it's very difficult. I do not know how do we deal with it. So we have to have a reconciliation program by keeping all the three things in mind. Now, what is the pathway to the synergy is to coherence, aligning environmental impact assessments with disaster preparedness. I mean, if you look at EIA notification from 1994, then we moved to 2006, and now we follow the 2020 amended guideline, the notification. If you look at that, still it is the risk and hazard component is oversighted. So enough the due technical credit has to be given to the risk and hazard component in the EIA exercise, and especially the SIA component has to be strengthened with risk and hazard component, and this has to be an inclusive parameter in the further EIA amended notification as well. And as a informed citizen, we need to raise about this, and we have to urge for that. So carrying capacity assessments are also need to be integrated in terms of multi-hazard assessment, and when we connect the dot and link with different line departments, because different line departments only can prioritize how the natural resource base could be justifiably and sustainably utilized, because we have to ensure that we are not crossing the tipping point. One must look at the global footprint network. The way, I mean, the recent estimate says we actually need 1.7 planet, 1.7 Earth to meet the requirement of the just single planet that is supporting the biosphere, right? If that is what is the rate of resource utilization that we have, it is highly essential that the regeneration potential of all the landscapes and the ecosystem on the planet Earth need to be realized, and that need to be integrated into our policy planning. And plus health indicators has to be integrated in the climate risk mapping also. And next, the next component in the synergistic relationship would be interdisciplinary collaboration, partnership between higher education, universities, community based organization, planning bodies. I mean, many of the IIT, even IIT Roorkee has also developed planning for landslide modeling with district DM plans. And so that is how strategic collaboration with higher education institutions like state university, which are located in different disaster prone areas, because they have been experiencing that. So we need to learn from their experience. Strategic collaboration is essential. Now, the next component could be a community centric approach where indigenous early warning signs need to be integrated. That's where nature speaks a lot, and we need to learn a lot from our nature. And Odisha cyclone shelter, that actually dubs as a community resource center, and a lot has to be learned from OSDMA reports and the experience that Odisha has done in the past. Now, the next generation aspect is the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan that Government of India, Ministry of Higher Education has already implemented. Under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, the fostering social responsibility and community engagement in higher education institution in India 2.0 has been already implemented. Specific advisories are already passed on to the different universities. Now it is different universities and the line department, partner department of the state government and government of India. It is time for them to integrate with universities and start with community engagement program. That's where the capacity building, the narrative of capacity building has to change. Now, in this case, I would rather say the cadre, the Apada Mitra, Sarma sir was rightly pointing out about the human resource capital that we need to, the cadre of human resource we have to develop in terms of Apada Mitra, but then that concept also has to be integrated into university curriculum. University curriculum and lot of experiential learning. Students have to be sent to disaster prone areas, for having a immersion program in disaster prone areas, village immersion program. That's where they will get to know that what a disaster is, and they need to be taught about. So those concepts, mitigation concepts, had to be percolated down to the society. Now this is the guideline that UGC has, Ministry of Education and University Grants Commission has already released. Our university, we also have received it, and I must say with an element of pride that Barampur University was the first state university in the country which organized a faculty development program, provided handholding to the teachers from different higher education institutions on community-based participatory research methodology. And we collaborated with UNESCO chair in community-based research and social responsibility in higher education. The co-chair is based out of Delhi. Then we developed cadre of trained teachers. The first batch had 46 teachers that we developed, and that is now they are going to different villages in the jurisdiction of their college and developing Apada Mitra and developing different cadre of trained students and community workers as well. Now, this is the part of community building approach that I was talking about. So what is necessity now is we have to leverage the guideline that NEP 2020 is now talking about. Is till now, when it is synergy, establishing synergy for governance, we were talking about different departments, but somehow we have never thought of universities as one of the classical centers of research, classical centers of producing human resources need to be on board with the planning bodies. But now it is high time with NEP 2020, with strengthening district administration and chipping in trained human resource through Bharat Scouts, etc. So university plays a major role. And there are integrated drought and disaster response system in Kerala. I think that is there also in Sikkim, which Sarma sir was briefing about. So I will not narrate much about it. Now, next couple of slides are about what is the necessity now, each about AHP modeling and multi-stakeholder consultation. That's where you prepare geographical issues, natural hazards, the conflict zone, the scale of magnitude of vulnerability, and you overlay everything, then you take a decision. So that's where the key performance indicators play a major role. Now, this is another study which talks about how risk overlays help us in preparing the KPIs and how AHP helps us in breaking down the hierarchy of criteria and sub-criteria and helping us to identify both the cold spots and hot spots where short-term and long-term intervention could be initiated. Now, what are the strategic needs? We have to make the society hazard ready. If we have to make the society hazard ready, Apada Mitra training program need to be really taken up in a more extensive manner by incorporating both involving school and mass education department and higher education department in every state. The way forward, the futuristic aspect could be integrating the GIS-based decision support system, and most importantly, indigenous knowledge system. Now, Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, that is also again being pushed through through NEP 2020 guideline by the Ministry of Education, and I urge ICARS and Sphere India also to collaborate with state universities, bring in otherwise getting lost the knowledge system that has to be chipped into multi-hazard preparedness and planning exercise. Now, the key takeaway from today's discussion could be, I still agree, Dr. Salini was also talking about plantation. That cannot be ultimate solution. Also, although different states are taking up plantation activity at a different level, but that need to be based on the sound ecological principles. So silos, it could be risk multipliers, but if it is synergy, it could be resilience multiplier. The choice is ours, whether we wish to multiply risk or we wish to multiply resilience. That's where we need to have data transparency, because that is what is going to drive us into taking a robust decision. So policy reform must be highly inclusive, and communities are the core to the preparedness. Because if we develop community, if we enhance the capacity of community, entire multi-hazard risk dealing with such risk could be handy. And so thank you so much. This takes me a quote that we have to go back to nature, because it is the nature which has enough for us in terms of solution, mitigation strategy, and building resilience. That's what I remember the quote by David Hurley. So what standard you walk past is the standard you accept, and it is up to us the threshold that we need to set through by setting the synergy among different stakeholders and different line departments. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Your presentation was really, it was commendable. And also, sir, you mentioned about the fragmented governance and how working in siloed system could have certain very harmful impacts, and the need for the appropriate funds, the coordination between the gaps, and how Odisha is conditioning itself with the special focus with disasters and special focus on multi-hazard plans is very much I mean appreciated. And sir, you mentioned about the EIA and SEA to be very important tools, but often we often fail to also mention about one very specific tool, which is the DIA, which is disaster impact assessment. If we integrate that, it will actually feed into the risk assessment models and will have a better understanding to the risks. And also, sir, the recommendations that you have mentioned for ICAs also, we will definitely take that up. And again, sir, thank you so much for the presentation. And with this, I now open the floor for the question and answer sessions. If you have any specific questions, I did not see a very relevant questions. Rather, I had seen very important recommendations and suggestions of people. Somebody talked about, I think, Dr. Megh Ranjan Rai talked about the community related aspects, how important they are for disasters and also disaster risk reduction and also the climate change adaptation. There was Dr. There was another person, he mentioned about how these glacial lakes and what could, he was mentioning on what Professor Sharma sir was talking about and how risks can rather be averted. But now I open the floor for further questions. If any one of you have any specific question, please, you can definitely ask our speakers. Sanchita, do we have any other question in the chat box?
No, not as you rightly said that I have seen very important recommendations, not a relevant question on the basis of the particular topic we are focusing on or any speaker relevant to any speaker. So I don't think mostly there are recommendations only.
Yes, yes, yes. So maybe we can have, if there are any further questions or any cases or any models that, yes, I see Dr.
Yeah.
Megh Ranjani Rai. Ma'am, please. You can unmute yourself, ma'am.
She might be facing some kind of.
Madam, you can also write down your question in the chat box. Sanchita, is there any possibility? Can we help her on unmuting? I think she's.
She's unmute only.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you very much for this invite. And the presentations have been very, very enlightening for me because I am actually new to the Indian, though I'm an Indian here, but the scenario is very enlightening for me. And I am basically a radar member, an emergency personnel working basically with emergency response in post-conflict and post-disaster situations. And I know many of the people, Professor Vinod, who has always encouraged me, and I never met him, but he's always been my mentor. But thank you very much. So my interest is actually, I am a CBDRM trainer, and I have worked and I've seen that both in post-conflict and disaster, that investing in the community has been very, very helpful and very, very productive after many disasters where community capacities have been built. So I'm very happy that people validate. There is just one question that I feel that I have in many forums, I have been advocating for. One is that the inclusion of gender into any of the training modules, any of the approaches. So I was the technical specialist from USFS for integrating gender into the IRS Incident Command 11 modules. But every time there's been a training, I see that they have not used that module. So that's very important for us. The second thing also I feel very much is that, we are talking of generic approaches, but being such a diverse country and India also has many areas of conflict. And I do understand that involving communities is a very big disadvantage or a deterrent to our approaches. So sometime there should be a reflection on any of the, we have webinars and we have many strategies and policies. but they do not include conflict approaches or indicators. How do I, as a responder at the community level, look at, how do I deal with the conflict indicator in an approach? And then another thing I feel is that I have worked with IDPs, and it's very important that our contingency plannings do have some ways of mentioning durable solutions for IDPs in terms where emergencies are protracted or we have very long situations where they are displaced populations. So if any further time, if we can have some reflection on that, it will be very helpful in our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the question, ma'am. I think you talked about that particular model on gender-specific aspects. If it is available on the internet, you can share the link in the chat box. Maybe the one who are present here, they can go through that link, and as appropriate, they might use it. And also, ma'am, you talked about a very important thing on the conflict approaches and indicators. Anjan sir, would you like to highlight something on that?
Yes. So regarding gender-specific, gender-related issue, Madam has rightly pointed out that even the Unnat Bharat 2, India 2.0, that guideline, and the UNESCO chair, that program they have been organizing on community-based participatory research takes gender parity as one of the core component of that. So when we when we make capacity building, when we develop cadre of human resource, we have to keep that in mind as well. So you have said that rightly, madam. Gender aspect is always there. Even UGC guideline also speaks very clearly about that, very assertively. And universities are governed by that in terms of maintaining a gender parity, both in terms of classroom and training and all so on and so forth.
Thank
In
you.
fact, madam, the National Adaptation Plan has a specific focus on what you're mentioning. So they have now, they are very particular to this fact that how gender adaptive approaches and how gender sensitive strategies can be included. So MOEF is also taking it as a very priority. Sharma sir, do you want to add something, sir?
No, I think it was very interesting, and there is. I just want to give my regards to Meg Rai. She is very active and very important resource person for us, and I think Anjan, you have done good job, and many new things. People have learned from your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Thali.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharma sir. Thank you, Rushdi sir and Dr. Rai. Now I pass over to Sanchita for taking this forward.
So thank you all for joining today's enriching webinar on India's evolving risk landscape towards inclusive and adaptive disaster resilience. So on behalf of Spare India and our esteemed co-organizing partner, ICAR's IIT team, I extend our heartfelt gratitude to all the distinguished speakers for sharing their insights, thought-provoking perspectives on the evolving and the complex nature of disaster risk in India. Your deep dives into issues such as wind and sandstorms, hydrometeorological risk, the role of NBS, and importance of integrated governance have added a great value to today's dialogue. A special note of appreciation to Ms. Pritha Acharya for a seamless moderation and for expertly navigating us through such rich layered discussions. We are especially thankful to ICAR's IIT Roorkee for partnering us in organizing such an important webinar. ICARS, as we know, has instrumental in advancing agenda for climate adaptation and disaster risk resilience through evidence-based research, cross-sectoral engagements, and leadership in ecosystem-based approaches. To all participants, including all the professionals, practitioners, academicians, humanitarian workers, thank you for taking your time out to engage with us. Your presence today reflects the growing collective to build more resilient, inclusive, and adaptive India. We will continue to hosting such webinars under Spare India Academy, covering the themes around disaster resilience, climate adaptation, risk governance, and more. And we also welcome your feedback and suggestions to
I think there is some issue with the internet. Uh, Anybody from Spare, can you just check once? I think there is some issue, and Sanchita might be joining back. So, uh, Spare India, anybody from your end can take the vote of thanks up?
So sorry for the network interruption, I guess I faced. So I shall lastly, I wanted to say that I hope I was audible. I was able to state the vote of thanks. So lastly, I would say that we would continue organizing such webinar and under the Spare India Academy and covering such themes of disaster risk resilience, climate adaptation, focusing on NBS, risk governance, and more. So do stay connected to us through our social media channels and the Spare India Academy for updates on future sessions and resources. Once again, thank you all. Stay safe, stay resilient, and take care.
Thank you.